If you're thinking about moving to Goose Creek, the biggest thing that you need to understand is that Goose Creek is not one single lifestyle. A lot of people from outside the area just see Goose Creek as the more affordable alternative to Somerville, Mount Pleasant, or Charleston. And that is partially true, but once you actually start comparing the neighborhoods, the differences are actually much bigger than people realize. Some parts of Goose Creek feel like older, established suburbs with mature trees and larger lots. Some areas feel like practical family subdivisions. Some are newer and more polished. Some are more affordable and less HOA driven. And then you have places like Crowfield where you can get trails, lakes, a golf course, and even higher end sections like the Hamlets that feel very different from the rest of the city. So in this video, I'm breaking down 5 of the most important neighborhoods in Goose Creek: Crowfield Plantation, Carnes Crossroads, Hall Plantation, Brickhope Plantation, and Boulder Bluff. And I'm not just going to tell you which one is the best, because that completely depends on the buyer. I'm going to compare the lifestyle, the pros, the cons, the buyer profile, and how each one stacks up against the others. Crowfield Plantation is probably the most important neighborhood to understand in Goose Creek, because it's not just one small subdivision, it's basically a city within the city, one of the largest and most established communities in Goose Creek. It has multiple subsections, parks, trails, lakes, pools, tennis courts. It's also known for having Goose Creek's only golf course. That matters because Crowfield has the most complete neighborhood identity of anything on this list. When you drive through Crowfield, it feels more established. You get mature trees, wider community roads, lakes, trails, older brick homes, different sections with different price points, and more of that traditional low country suburban feeling. The biggest pro of Crowfield is that it gives you the most complete lifestyle in Goose Creek. You get all the amenities while still having that community feeling. It doesn't feel like just another subdivision off a main road. Here's a local level thing people miss. Crowfield is not one market. The part of Crowfield you buy in matters a lot. Some sections are more entry level, some feel older and more affordable, some have larger homes, some have smaller starter home style properties, some back up to the golf course, ponds, or wooded areas, and then you have sections like the Hamlets, which is one of the more desirable and higher end areas within Crowfield. The Hamlets is where Crowfield starts to feel less like a typical Goose Creek subdivision and more like a true golf course community. You'll see larger homes, a more upscale feel, and more of that established neighborhood presence that a lot of buyers are looking for when they want something nicer, but still want to stay in Goose Creek. That's why when someone says they want to live in Crowfield, the real question is, which part of Crowfield? Buying in the Hamlets is not the same as buying in one of the smaller, older sections. Buying near the golf course is not the same as buying deeper in one of the more affordable pockets. Crowfield has a lot of variety, which is one of its strengths, but it also means that buyers need to understand this specific subsection before making that decision. That's very different from something like Hall or Brickhope, where the neighborhood identity is simpler and more uniform. Crowfield is best for someone who wants a neighborhood that already feels established. This is not the shiny, brand new, everything looks the same community. It has more character, more tree cover, more variation, and more history behind it. It's the kind of place where you can have families, retirees, golfers, walkers, runners, and longtime Goose Creek residents all in the same general community. The biggest pro is the amenity package. You have the golf course, you have walking trails, the tennis courts, parks, playgrounds, lakes, and a much bigger community feel than most Goose Creek neighborhoods. Another big pro is resale recognition. In Goose Creek, Crowfield is one of the few names that a lot of buyers already know. That doesn't automatically mean every home sells quickly, but name recognition definitely helps. Buyers understand what they're buying into. Another pro is variety. You can find different home sizes, styles, price points, and different levels of updating. For buyers, that creates options. For sellers, it means pricing has to be very specific to the subsection, condition, upgrades, and exact location within that community. The biggest con is age and inconsistency. Because Crowfield is established, many homes are not going to feel brand new. A buyer may love the outside of the neighborhood, then walk into a home and realize it needs new floors, bathrooms, kitchen updates, windows, HVAC, roof, and maybe just cosmetic work. That doesn't mean Crowfield is a bad option. In fact, some buyers prefer that because they would rather have mature trees, trails, and a real golf course community over a newer home with a smaller lot. But it does mean that buyers have to look carefully at condition. The second con is that some buyers will not like how spread out and varied it is. Crowfield is not as simple as Carnes Crossroads, where the community has a more obvious, modern, master planned identity. Crowfield is more layered. The third con is that the HOA, amenities, and section by section differences need to be checked carefully. Buyers should not assume every property has the exact same experience just because it says Crowfield on it. Compare that to Carnes Crossroads. Crowfield is older, more wooded, less polished, and more traditional. Carnes feels newer and more intentionally designed. Crowfield feels more established and lived in. Compared to Hall, Crowfield has more amenities and more name recognition. But Hall is simpler and maybe easier for a buyer who just wants a normal family subdivision. Compared to Brickhope, Crowfield has a more mature character and stronger identity, while Brickhope may offer newer feeling homes and a more straightforward subdivision feel. Compared to Boulder Bluff, Crowfield is much more amenitized and polished, but Boulder Bluff may win for pure affordability. Carnes Crossroads is the most modern lifestyle community on this list. This is the neighborhood I'd talk about when someone wants a newer, more curated master plan community feel. Carnes has parks, trails, resort-style amenities, community gathering spaces, restaurants, shops, and even a Roper St. Francis Berkeley Hospital within the community area. That is a completely different lifestyle than Boulder Bluff or even Liberty Hall. Carnes Crossroads is not just about the house, it's about buying into a planned environment. Sidewalks, gathering spaces, the amenities, community events, the schools, and future growth are all part of the appeal. This is why Carnes is so appealing to relocation buyers. If someone is moving from out of state and they want an easy to understand, clean, newer community, Carnes is very easy to explain. It's built for the buyer who wants convenience and lifestyle bundled together. It has more of that newer Berkeley County growth corridor feel where the neighborhood is not just a place to sleep, but part of your daily routine. You can go on a walk, take the kids to the pool, and be near restaurants and services and feel like the community was planned around making everyday life easier. Local level, Carnes feels like less old Goose Creek and more like newer Somerville and Berkeley County growth corridor. That's important. Someone who wants classic Goose Creek affordability may feel like Carnes is too expensive or too polished, but someone who wants a newer lifestyle community may think Carnes is the best option in the area. The biggest pro is the lifestyle package. Carnes gives you the best modern amenity feel of the 5 neighborhoods. The resort-style amenities, trails, community gathering spaces, and nearby retail and medical services make it feel more than just like a regular subdivision. The second pro is newer housing. Buyers who don't want to spend their first year on replacing old carpet, renovating bathrooms, or dealing with dated layouts may prefer Carnes over Crowfield or Boulder Bluff. The third pro is future growth. Carnes is positioned in an area where Berkeley County growth has been very strong. That can be attractive for long-term buyers who care about convenience, services, and future demand. The fourth pro is relocation appeal. Some neighborhoods require local explanation, whereas Carnes does not. You can drive someone through Carnes and they immediately understand the appeal. The biggest con is price. Carnes is probably not going to be the best deal if all you care about is square footage per dollar. You're paying for newer homes, amenities, planning, and the broader lifestyle. The second con is that not everyone likes master plan communities. Some buyers feel like they're too designed, too uniform, or too HOA heavy. If someone wants larger lots, older trees, and more individuality, they may prefer Crowfield or even Boulder Bluff. The third con is that it can feel less like traditional Goose Creek. Depending on where someone works and what roads they use every day, the exact location may not be ideal. It's great for some Berkeley County and Somerville area routines, but it's not automatically the best Goose Creek location for every commute. Compared to Crowfield, Carnes is newer, more curated, and more polished. Crowfield has a more mature character and stronger community identity. Compared to Liberty Hall, Carnes has a much stronger lifestyle package. Liberty Hall is more practical and less expensive feeling. Compared to Brickhope, Carnes is more premium master plan version. Brickhope is more of a practical, newer subdivision with some amenities. And then compared to Boulder Bluff, Carnes is almost the opposite. Carnes is lifestyle first, whereas Boulder Bluff is value first. Liberty Plantation is the practical family neighborhood. This is not the most famous neighborhood in Goose Creek. It's not the largest, it's not the flashiest, but it makes a lot of sense for normal buyers because it checks the main boxes without overcomplicating the search. Liberty Hall has a neighborhood pool, clubhouse, playground, sidewalks, and a family-oriented subdivision feel. The reason Liberty Hall belongs on this list is because it fills the middle lane. Not every buyer wants Crowfield's size, older home variety, and section-by-section complexity. Not every buyer wants Carnes Crossroads pricing or master plan to polish. Not every buyer wants Boulder Bluff's older value play feel. Liberty Hall is kind of that neighborhood that makes sense when someone wants a solid house, a neighborhood that feels clean and family friendly, and a location that works without needing the most impressive amenity package in Goose Creek. The lifestyle in Liberty Hall is straightforward suburban living. This is the type of neighborhood where people are usually focused on the house, the floor plan, the monthly payment, the yard, and whether the neighborhood feels safe, simple, and functional. It's practical. It's not trying to be a resort community. This is a good fit for first-time buyers, young families, military buyers, and people who want to be in Goose Creek without feeling like they're buying into something too old or too expensive. Local level, Liberty Hall feels like the kind of neighborhood where the house itself matters a lot. In Carnes, the neighborhood lifestyle may sell the home. In Crowfield, the community identity may help sell the home. In Liberty Hall, buyers are usually comparing the house, the condition, the monthly payment, and the street. That means pricing and condition matter a lot here. The biggest pro is balance. Liberty Hall gives buyers a pool, park, playground, sidewalks, and a family-oriented feel without the same complexity as Crowfield or the same premium feel as Carnes. The second pro is simplicity. It's easier for buyers to understand than Crowfield because it doesn't have nearly as many subsections or micro-neighborhood personalities. The third pro is that it has enough amenities to feel like a real neighborhood, but not so much that the neighborhood becomes the entire reason you're buying there. The fourth pro is that it can be a good compromise for buyers who want Goose Creek affordability, but still want an HOA subdivision feel. The biggest con is that Liberty Hall does not have a major wow factor. When you compare it to Crowfield, it doesn't have a golf course, massive trail system, lake presence, or the same level of name recognition. When you compare it to Carnes, it doesn't have the same master plan design, newer lifestyle feel, or destination community appeal. When you compare it to Brickhope, it may feel similar in buyer profile, so the decision often comes down to the specific house, commute, and price. Another con is that because Liberty Hall sits in the practical middle, it has to win on value. If a home is overpriced, buyers may start to compare it to Crowfield for more amenities, Brickhope for a newer feel, or Carnes if they're willing to spend a little bit more. Compared to Crowfield, Liberty Hall is simpler and more practical, but less amenity rich. Compared to Carnes, Liberty Hall is less polished and less lifestyle heavy, but likely more attainable for many buyers. Compared to Brickhope, Liberty Hall is probably the closest comparison. Brickhope may feel newer in some areas, while Liberty Hall may feel more established and centrally practical. Compared to Boulder Bluff, Liberty Hall feels more like a traditional subdivision with amenities, while Boulder Bluff feels like older, more value-driven. Brickhope Plantation is the newer, practical middle ground community. This is why I chose Brickhope over Sophia Landing for this list. Sophia Landing is a solid community, but Brickhope gives you a stronger contrast because it sits between Liberty Hall and Carnes Crossroads in a way that's useful for buyers. Brickhope has a clubhouse, pool, children's play area, and depending on the section, a newer construction feel that can be attractive to first-time and move-up buyers. The buyer profile is exactly why Brickhope matters. It's not trying to be Crowfield, it's not trying to be Carnes. It's a practical, newer-feeling neighborhood for people who want amenities and a good house without necessarily paying for the biggest name community. Brickhope works well for buyers who like the idea of newer layouts, a neighborhood pool, and a more modern subdivision feel, but who may not need the full master planned lifestyle that Carnes offers. Local level, Brickhope makes sense for people who are using Goose Creek as a practical base. They may work in North Charleston, at or near Joint Base Charleston, Boeing, Bosch, Trident, the Naval Weapons Station, or somewhere along the I-26 corridor. For that buyer, the neighborhood doesn't need to feel like a vacation community. It needs to make everyday life easier. It needs to have reasonable access, good functionality, a house that doesn't feel outdated, and enough neighborhood amenities to make it feel like a real neighborhood. The biggest pro is that Brickhope gives you the newer neighborhood benefits without the full Carnes Crossroads feel. You can get amenities, newer layouts, and a family-friendly subdivision environment while still staying in a more practical Goose Creek lane. The second pro is commute practicality. For a lot of buyers, especially military, healthcare, aerospace, logistics, or North Charleston area workers, Goose Creek is about access. Brickhope can make sense because it connects reasonably well to the broader employment corridor. The third pro is that homes can feel more modern than many older Goose Creek options. For buyers who don't want older kitchens, lower ceilings, smaller bathrooms, or dated floor plans, Brickhope may feel more comfortable than Boulder Bluff or older Crowfield sections. The fourth pro is that it has enough amenities to compete with Liberty Hall and even some parts of Crowfield, even if it doesn't have the same overall identity as Crowfield. The biggest con is that Brickhope doesn't have the same big name recognition as Crowfield or Carnes Crossroads. If you're selling in Crowfield, buyers often know the name. If you're selling in Carnes, buyers understand the master planned lifestyle. Brickhope may need a little bit more explanation. The second con is that it may not feel as unique. It's a good neighborhood, but it may not have the same story as Crowfield's golf course and trails or Carnes' master planned lifestyle. The third con is that it may compete closely with Liberty Hall. For buyers, that means you really have to compare the specific home, exact price, square footage, updates, HOA, and commute. Compared to Crowfield, Brickhope is generally more straightforward and potentially newer feeling, but it lacks Crowfield's mature trees, golf course, trail network, and large community identity. Compared to Carnes, Brickhope is more practical and less premium. Carnes wins on lifestyle. Brickhope may win on value. Compared to Liberty Hall, Brickhope is probably the closest head-to-head comparison. Both can work for practical family buyers. Brickhope may win if you want newer feeling amenities and homes, while Liberty Hall may win if the specific house or location is better. Compared to Boulder Bluff, Brickhope is much more subdivision-like, more amenitized and more polished. Boulder Bluff is the value play. This is the neighborhood on the list that I would explain very differently from the others. Boulder Bluff is not here because it has the best amenities. It's not here because it's the prettiest neighborhood. It's not here because relocation buyers are constantly asking about it. It's here because affordability matters, and Boulder Bluff gives buyers a way into Goose Creek at a lower price point than many of the more polished neighborhoods in the area. That price difference changes the buyer profile completely. Boulder Bluff is older, simpler, and more budget conscious. This is for the buyer who's not obsessed with having a pool, clubhouse, golf course, walking trails, or master plan environment. They care more about monthly payment, yard, location, and maybe avoiding a high HOA. This can be a good fit for first-time buyers, investors, buyers who are handy, buyers who want to build equity through updates, or someone who would rather buy a cheaper older home and improve it over time. Local level, Boulder Bluff feels more like Old Goose Creek. It's not as polished as Carnes, it's not as organized as Liberty Hall, it's not as amenity-rich as Crowfield, but that's also the point. You're not having to pay for all of that. The biggest pro is affordability. Boulder Bluff is likely the most budget-friendly option on this list, and for a lot of buyers, that matters more than anything else. The second pro is potential. Older neighborhoods can create opportunities for buyers who are willing to renovate. If you buy the right house at the right price, you may be able to add value over time with cosmetic updates. The third pro is simplicity. Not everyone wants an HOA-heavy lifestyle. Not everyone wants a community where every house looks similar. Some buyers like older neighborhoods because they feel less controlled. The fourth pro is that it can be a good option for investors or owner-occupants who are comfortable evaluating condition carefully. The biggest con is condition variability. In Boulder Bluff, the difference between one home and another can be huge. One house may be nicely updated, while the other may need major work. The second con is curb appeal. If a buyer wants a polished entrance, consistent landscaping, newer homes, and amenities, Boulder Bluff is absolutely not going to be their first choice. The third con is resale audience. Boulder Bluff can absolutely sell, but the buyer pool may be more payment sensitive. That means pricing matters a lot. A house that's clean, updated, and priced right can be attractive. A house that's dated and overpriced will struggle. The fourth con is that you don't get the lifestyle infrastructure of the other neighborhoods. You don't have a golf course like Crowfield, no major master plan lifestyles like Carnes, no traditional subdivision amenity package like Liberty Hall or Brickhope. Compared to Crowfield, Boulder Bluff is much less amenitized and less polished, but likely more affordable. Compared to Carnes, Boulder Bluff is the complete opposite. Carnes is the lifestyle to buy, Boulder Bluff is the payment and value buy. Compared to Liberty Hall, Boulder Bluff is older and less subdivision oriented. Liberty Hall is more family, neighborhood polished. Compared to Brickhope, Boulder Bluff is less modern and less amenitized, but may offer a lower entry price. So instead of ranking these 1 through 5, like one is objectively better than another, I would think about them by buyer type. Crowfield Plantation is the strongest fit for someone who wants the most established Goose Creek community, especially if they care more about the mature trees, trails, amenities, and having different sections to choose from. And if someone wants a more elevated version of Crowfield, the Hamlets is one of the areas I'd pay close attention to. Carnes Crossroads is the better fit for someone who wants the newest and most lifestyle-driven environment. It feels more planned, more polished, and more convenient for someone who likes the idea of having amenities, restaurants, medical access, and community spaces built into the area. Liberty Hall Plantation is the practical family option. It doesn't have the biggest name or the flashiest amenities, but it gives buyers a clean, functional neighborhood with enough amenities to make sense without pushing them into more premium lifestyle communities. Brickhope Plantation is the newer, practical middle ground. It gives buyers a more modern feel than many older Goose Creek neighborhoods, while still being more straightforward and value-focused than Carnes Crossroads. Boulder Bluff is the affordability play. It's not going to impress the same way as Crowfield or Carnes might, but for the right buyer, the lower price point and older home potential can make a lot of sense. Here's how I'd think about it if I were actually helping someone choose between these neighborhoods. If you're relocating from out of state and want the easiest community to understand immediately, Carnes Crossroads may impress you the most. If you're looking in Goose Creek specifically and you want the strongest community identity, Crowfield Plantation is probably the safest place to start. If you want a more upscale pocket within Goose Creek without leaving the Crowfield area, I'd look closely at the Hamlets. If you have kids and want something practical with sidewalks, a pool, and a family neighborhood feel, Liberty Hall and Brickhope should both be on your list. If your budget is tighter and your main goal is getting into a house instead of paying for lifestyle, Boulder Bluff may make more sense than people realize. But the biggest mistake would be comparing these neighborhoods only by price. A $400,000 home in Crowfield versus Liberty Hall or Carnes Crossroads might represent completely different lifestyles. One might give you mature trees, established amenities, and the golf course, and one might give you a practical family subdivision, while the other might give you newer construction and a more polished growth area. That's why the right neighborhood depends less on which one is best and more on what you actually want in your day-to-day life. So if you're thinking about moving to Goose Creek, don't just search homes for sale in Goose Creek and assume every neighborhood's going to be the same. Crowfield, Carnes Crossroads, Liberty Hall, Brickhope, Boulder Bluff, Sophia Landing all have very different buyers. Some are better for lifestyle, some are better for affordability, some are better for newer homes, some are better for long-term neighborhood identity, and some are better if you care more about your monthly payment than having the prettiest entrance sign. And if you're trying to figure out which one fits you the best, reach out. I see more properties before they come onto the market than any other agent in Charleston, and I can help you compare not just the homes, but the actual lifestyle behind each neighborhood.